Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome back once again to JJ's PC Build. You know it is JJ right here with you once again. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, welcome to the family, welcome to the community, and my veteran subscribers, as always, much love to you for all that you do, watching videos from beginning to end, and helping support the channel. Now, today, it's going to be a follow-up day. I know it's Sunday, but it's going to be a follow-up day. I had a question brought to me on a video about the 7950 XTX from AMD, the RX 7950 XTX. Why did it not come out? Well, that's what we're going to touch on today, but if you're wondering the reason why I made that video back in May of this year was because it was leaked out of there that it was supposed to come out, you know, and everybody was getting ready and ramped up for it and thought this was going to be the utmost of AMD surpassing NVIDIA when it comes to the clock speeds and everything else, and, you know, just an ultimate GPU. But it did not turn out that way. But we are going to go through this really carefully, so this way you'll see what I saw on my end. And I'm going to bring it to you again. Even though I made that first video, this is going to be a follow-up video to that. And I know I apologize for not making the video any sooner, but I didn't get any information on it, so I really didn't, you know, follow back up with it because AMD hasn't thrown out the information yet about it, or we haven't gotten any leaks more about it, and, you know, it just like it fizzled off. So I do apologize not making a follow-up video for it, but, you know, we're going to follow up today. So let's go ahead and go to the action screen. Okay, this is what's on Tech Power Up. Okay, now, what I'm getting here, and you can see this, the 7950 XTX. The 7950 XTX, but it was put into the, what was it, how did you say that? It was put into the, you know, the market as it was going to be ready to be built, you know, board partners and stuff, they put in for it in case NVIDIA or AMD decided, see, I almost said NVIDIA, but I did say it, but anyway. AMD puts it in to where they're going to build the card and then they're going to send it out to their board partners. It was not going to be a Founders Edition card. So it wasn't supposed to be a Founders Edition card. It's supposed to be like, this was supposed to be the first one that was supposed to come out was the 7950 XTX. But there was a change in the process, and they ran into some issues with the 7950 XTX, so they cut it down to the 7900 XTX. What I mean by cut down doesn't mean that, you know, any aspects have changed, except for the clock speeds have changed. You know, that's basically what I gathered upon this as, you know, as I was, you know, reevaluating this again. So looking at this, basically coming down to it, if it would have ever come out at the 100% mark, it's still 6% faster, what they're claiming that the 7950 XTX is. Now, it's claiming that you got the 7900 XTX, which is 76%. So what you do is you take 100% and you minus it from the 76, and that still comes up where it's going to be 24% faster than the 7900 XTX. But still having the same things, The difference is the clock speed. Okay, now if you noticed, and I'm going to go over here, this is the 7950. Let's go back to the 7900 XTX and go back to their clock speeds. Okay, now if you look at the clock speeds here, base clock 1855, shader clock 2269, game clock 2269, those are the same always. Boost clock 2499, memory clock 2500 megahertz, 20 gigabits per second effective. Okay, now going over here, you're going to see the base clock's at 2200, the shader clock's at 3000, game clock's at 3000, the boost clock's at 3300, and the memory clock's still the same. And everything else is pretty much the same. Okay, we understand that. Okay, but they were giving higher boost clocks than was foretold with the 7900 XTX. Now, people back then were looking at the clock speeds to be a lot higher than what they were given right here. Okay, now if you want to really go diligence, then what would you do is you type in the RTX 4090 and specs, and look it up, the 4090 specs. Okay, now the difference between the 4090 and the 7900 XTX is the core count. That's number one. NVIDIA done put 16,384 cores up on their stuff. So let's go to the clock speeds. And shows right here that the RTX 4090 is 20% higher than the 7900 XTX. But going to the clock speeds, the base clock's 2235, boost clock's 2520. Now I want y'all to understand something about the boost clocks. Okay? This is not the exact boost clock. That's basically, I have the RTX 4070. My clock speed at idle sits at 2520. At idle. Okay? At idle. So, and it boosts up to 3060 megahertz. So those numbers, you look at them and you kind of figure to yourself, does it really actually, are the clocks really at that number? Because if I remember right, I was seeing somebody did a review on the 4090 and they said they got the clock speed up to 3060. And that's about the most they can go with it. So if I'm getting the same clock speeds on the 4070 compared to, the 4090, what kind of deal do you think I got? You think NVIDIA's got this 4090 reaching up to 3.3 gigahertz or 3300 megahertz? Like over here on the 7950? Right here. You think they got the boost clocks past 3300 megahertz? No. NVIDIA doesn't. And it seems AMD doesn't neither. So that was the whole point of that, is I wanted to see that higher boost clock, and see that more of that uplift that it would get. And it would have been nice if they would have had it up there, but no, they give you this. They give you this right here. And so that's pretty much what you're getting, 2499 megahertz. Okay, now this could go up to 3,000. This could go up to about 3 gigahertz. But how far does it go on 3 gigahertz? Does it go up to 31, 32? Does it go up to 3,300 megahertz or 3.3 gigahertz? I don't know. I can't say if it does or doesn't right now because I don't have that card. Okay. If I had that card, it'd be a different story. And then I would test it like I do this RTX 4070 and push it to its limit. And then I would see if the 7900 XTX meets and exceeds what they should have put out for the 7950 XTX. If I had those numbers, I could test it to see if the numbers are equal or equivalent to it. Okay, but from what I'm seeing is that they're showing here. I know Tech Power Up, it gives you estimated numbers. But the thing is this. Even though they do, they're still giving you baseline numbers. Something to work with. Okay, now I'm working with these numbers and looking at it and, looking between this compared to 3300 now compared to 20, you're losing what, 500-600 megahertz between or 800 megahertz between the two. Yep. So, 800 megahertz. So between the two, you lose 800 megahertz. That's almost close to 1 gigahertz. And, what they could have wrapped up into that 800 megahertz could have been a better boost for your textures or anything else that they have rolling in there. They could have had many things wrapped up into that, and they had to cut something off. So they couldn't sell that. So obviously they told everybody it's a no-go. But do remember, I'm going to say this again. It was set as a leak. And that's what it says on the thumbnail, leaked. It says leak or leaked. That means it's basically, not proven yet, but it was an idea that was put out there. So if this was an idea that was put out there that was getting ready to come to production, that's the whole point of that video. It was bringing it to production, but it never made it to production. And that's what that's what y'all have to understand. When they bring something up to production, but change their mind last minute, then, it happens. And, that's what it comes down to. And I'm going to say this again. And this is my conclusion to this video, let you know. So the conclusion to this is, with the 7950 XTX, they did put out there and they did have it, getting it set and ready to go up onto the market, but they stopped production last minute because there was problems. So that happens with every one of the companies. And then, when they put those leaks out there and everything else, then you got, different websites putting up the specs and everything else. It's not to say it's not true, but it's not to say it's not false neither. So you got to look at it. Is it true or is it false? Okay. And as far as I know, it was a leak that was out there, but it was almost ready to go to production, but was stopped because it had issues. What the issues were, I could not tell you because that wasn't put out there for me to find. It's not like everybody's just going to reach in their back pocket and tell me the reason why they stopped it, but it was leaked out there. So I investigated it and I went to Tech Power Up to see what it was about. And, usually if, Tech Power Up puts something on there, that means it has to have some kind of truth to it. And there's other sites too that did reports on it as well as leaked information. You just go out there, do your homework, and see what you can find. I'm sure you'll find some reports on the 7950 XTX, but what emboldened me was that looking at it compared to the 7900 XTX is the 7900 XTX, and if you own one, are you getting 3.3 gigahertz of clock speed, max clock speed? Are you getting somewhere in there? you know, is it giving you some kind of generation boost on the 7900 XTX? What's it doing for you? I mean, looking at those numbers, even though that you get your baseline numbers can be similar on every graphics card in this world. Every one of them can be baseline, the same everything. Let me bring you back to it again and show you. So everything can be baseline. Okay, like the memory could be baseline. Everything could be baseline, but there could be just one thing that's changed. One thing that's just changed on the stats of the card. Like the TDP could be changed. They could have increased the TDP to like 455. You know, they could have done many of things. They could have increased the L3 or added more L2 cache to it. Or, you know, they could have turned around with the FP64. They could have moved it up and made it higher. Or the bandwidth, they could have made the bandwidth from 960 gigabits to about maybe 1.1 terabits per second. Okay, they could have done that too. You know, they could have changed the memory bus from 384 to 512-bit, or they could have made this GDDR6 Plus, which would be almost equivalent to a new GDDR7. Close to, but not if. Okay, the memory band, the VRAM didn't change. I mean, you know, between the 4090 and the 7900 XTX, they both get 24 gigabytes of VRAM. Okay, but what has me kind of thinking, why did the boost clock have 800 megahertz more than this one that they put out here? That was the question. That was the whole concern in question. Why they put more boost clock on the 7950, but they didn't do it here with the 7900. If they weren't going to put out the 7950, which they didn't put it out. It never got released, but they should have put that little extra that they were going to put into the 7950 onto the 7900. But they didn't. They made it almost equal to the 4080, the RTX 4080. In competitor with the RTX 4080. That's what they did. And that made the RTX 4090 a non-competitor, but now they're trying to change that through the software. They're trying to patch it up through the software to make your card make you think it's running faster, but it actually isn't. You know. So there's a lot of configurations to this story, but the thing is this: if they were smart, they would have put out the 7950 XTX and fixed the issues and put it out at the boost clock of being at 3.3. You know, let's get to the facts. They would have the boost clock right here at 3.3 gigahertz or 3300 megahertz. It would have made the biggest difference in the world. Also, too, the base clock would have made an even bigger difference because that one's at 1855, if I remember right. Yep, 1855. Going over here to the 7950 XTX, it's at 2200 megahertz. So you can't say there isn't a difference. There is a difference. That frequency is going to make the biggest difference in the world. That's a part of what makes the card more unique, is when you can hit those frequencies. And that's what makes the card, you know, when you change frequency and you go up to a higher frequency, that's what gives it that wider bandwidth. Okay. Now, if you're kind of crippling the bandwidth, and that's pretty much what they're doing. I mean, going back to this, it looks like, oh, we were going to give you this, but guess what? You're going to get this. You know, I mean, They didn't have to put shader clock in there. I mean, it's still going to be the same as the game clock. You know, you have to see it in a different light. Okay, what pissed me off is that they turned around and they leaked it out, and then they said, and this is what they said to everybody, look, we're gonna start dealing with mid-tier cards and low-tier cards, but high-end tier cards, we're not going to deal with it. So that's that. So when they did that, I think it was like 3 weeks ago or something like that, they did that and they said, you get what you get on mid-tier and low-tier cards, and that's all we're going to deal with right now, because they're doing the new AI thing like NVIDIA is. So high-end cards, they're not really doing them right now. And then NVIDIA says, whoa, they're not doing high-end anymore. So guess what? It keeps the 4090 right there on top. Now, you know what can keep the 4090 right there on top again is they can take and upgrade their software and make it run faster. Just like AMD is doing with their 7900 XTX. They're manipulating through the software to make it run faster. Okay, that's what they're doing. Okay, and NVIDIA has DLSS 3, 3.5, but it really does, for me, and I have an NVIDIA card, it doesn't seem like, it gives me the 100%, but it doesn't seem like it wants to give me that 110, 120. But in another video, I'm going to show you all that it does give me what I expected it to do. And you know what? I think this is the kind of card that hit the Silicon lottery. For some reason, it tells me it hit the Silicon lottery. But you'll have to wait for that next video. But this video right here is about the 7950 XTX that never came out. It's the little train that never came out. It's because they stopped all production and they had their problems, like I told you, end of story. So there's going to be no more mention about the 7950 XTX. This is the conclusion video of it, and that's done, said and done. I don't think they're going to bring it out. They might. I'll make this video and then they bring it out and be like, oh my God, they just brought it out. And I just said this was the ending conclusion of the 7950 XTX. You see the problem there is because AMD is not coordinating with, the people here making the videos on their products. They're not coordinating very well. Just like they didn't coordinate very well when Valve on Counter-Strike 2 said, you know what? You're running Anti-Lag Plus on your 7000 series graphics cards. Whoever has that and runs that, they're going to get banned until AMD fixes it. That's the same point. Or when they went out with the 7600 and they put out that new GPU. They start out at putting it at a high price and then say, oh, we're going to give you a deal. We're going to knock this much off of it. I mean, if you don't see the caveats to this, it's just they put out one thing and then they do another instead of doing what they said they're going to do and be consistent with it. Okay, they're not being consistent. On the other hand, when it comes to NVIDIA, they're being more consistent than AMD is. Now, I'm not knocking AMD, but, with their consistency, they're not being consistent. NVIDIA is and AMD isn't. It's not NVIDIA. Everybody complains. The only complaint everybody's got about NVIDIA is their pricing. And that's all I hear is about the pricing. I don't hear anything else. So when it comes to AMD and they have all these little caveats that come out and, Everybody's just like, oh, okay, okay, okay. Oh, they got the greatest card in the world. And guess what? They got the 7800 XT. Okay. Yeah. And that's why they're still having blue screening. And that's the reason why now they're having problems with the fact of Counter-Strike 2 and all that, Kind of do your homework. Add up weigh the good and the bad and how much good they have compared to how much bad they have. And then you'll understand. If you're just complaining about NVIDIA and their pricing, that's one bad thing that they have. But do remember, they have board partners too, like Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, all the rest of them out there. And they can manipulate the price because they have that right, because they're making their version of that card. That NVIDIA said, okay, well, here's your chip, make your card. So they're making the PCB and everything. So, of course, their prices are going to be more compared to the MSRP that you would get from NVIDIA, of course. But only if you get a Founders Edition from NVIDIA that you'll get that MSRP. But, some board partners been doing lately, they've been putting out the cards at MSRP. So I will admit that. They Asus, they hit a couple cards at MSRP. Okay. I don't know about MSI and Gigabyte. They probably did too, but, you have to look at it this way. NVIDIA might set the price, the baseline price, but that doesn't control the rest. So understand that when it comes to that. But this is not about a video about NVIDIA. This is about AMD and the 7950 XTX. So... But do understand, that's the reason why I threw them in there was so that you understand the cloak and dagger here. Okay? All businesses, it's part of business. They play you like you're a fiddle. And if you don't see that, then you're blinded to the fact. And then you shouldn't even be watching my video because you're blinded to the fact. But you do watch my video, and I do appreciate you made it to the end of this one. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. And I did notice we got a couple new subscribers, and welcome to the family. Welcome to JJ's PC Builds. And my veteran subscribers, as always, much love to you for all that you do, watching videos from beginning to end, and helping support the channel in that fashion. And also, too, telling your friends, family, and, your YouTube buddies to come on down and, kind of subscribe and watch the videos from beginning to end. But anyway, until the next time, and I mean the next time in the next video, this is JJ and JJ's PC Build. We will see you on the next one. Oh, P.S. This is not going to be an edited video. This comes out as is today. So we'll see you on the next one.